All right, man. I'm not going to take too much of y'all time here tonight or of your day, depending on when y'all watching this, because I'm recording this at 8:45 p.m. on a Saturday night. But it's been a pretty eventful day in the league today. Obviously, we had some pretty good games. There was the game between the Mavs and the Rockets, Cooper Flag versus KD, and the Rockets ended up winning that game 111-107. The Hornets beat the Spurs today. The Hornets have been on a roll, like I said in my trade video, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the two most recent pieces of news. One being the Paul George suspension for 25 games, and then the other would be this trade that just went down between the Sacramento Kings and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to get over that trade first. So, just right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, or yesterday, depending on when y'all watching this, last night, wherever. But anyways, the Cleveland Cavaliers recently traded DeAndre Hunter to the Sacramento Kings for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. So if y'all saw my community post when I did, the post trade video, which I didn't want to get into 45 minutes worth of going through like 7 different trades and me explaining those things and all that other stuff. I actually had Keon Ellis and Herbert Jones going to the Oklahoma City Thunder, which for me, the idea of that trade is to get Oklahoma City more consistency on defense, especially on the wings, because both Keon and Herb are really good defenders. And I thought Keon Ellis would be a solid backup for SGA just as well as AJ Mitchell, even though AJ Mitchell is a dog of his own. And after putting some thought into this, I can kind of see why the Cleveland Cavaliers would make this trade, because apparently they want to get rid of Lonzo Ball as well, per Brett Siegel, another NBA insider who's pretty credible in his own right. It also makes sense because when you have guys like Craig Porter Jr., who is a 6'1 shot blocking guard, and then you have guys like Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis joining in the mix, eventually Lonzo was going to fizzle out in the rotation, and plus Lonzo hasn't been great this year at all. The things that he was asked to do for the Cleveland Cavaliers, from what I've seen, he hasn't really been fulfilling that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can still pass, he can still defend, but there are times where I'm watching these games and it's just like Lonzo's really not helping the Cavaliers all that much, and it gets to a point where sometimes the Cavaliers are playing 4-on-5 when he's out there. Now that I think about it, bro, after putting some thought into this, I can definitely see why they would want to trade, or definitely see why they traded DeAndre Hunter, because when you have guys like Naquan Tomlin and Dean Wade doing the stuff that Hunter can do but better, it's the same thing with Lonzo Ball. Eventually, I felt like Hunter was going to fall out of the rotation, and it's going to free up minutes for guys like Dean Wade, even though Dean Wade has been there for a longer amount of time than Hunt. And then you have a guy like Naquan Tomlin, who is an energy bunny off the bench, man. And I think the main focal point in this deal is Keon Ellis. You know what I'm saying? And I can definitely see why they threw Schroeder into this deal as well, because Dennis can also help with their point guard depth, because when it comes to their health, especially with Darius Garland, their health at the point guard position, it ain't the prettiest. And it doesn't help that Lonzo Ball is an injury-prone guard himself. And then you have a guy like Craig Porter Jr., who he might not be injured, but he is a guard to get off your bench, especially for defensive purposes. Again, that's why the focal point of this deal would be Keon Ellis, because he's a really good backcourt defender. And I think with playing next to guys like Donovan, and then you have guys like Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, that is a pretty good defensive five. Now, the thing is, will this be enough for the Cavaliers to make it out of the East or make a deep playoff run? That remains to be seen. But the thing is, Keon is better off the bench. And I think Schroeder is going to start, because I think Darius Garland is still hurt, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, though. Okay, so Darius Garland is still out with a toe injury, so I'm going to assume that they are going to start Dennis next to Donovan. So let's look at the DeAndre Hunter side of things. Obviously, Sacramento gets a vet in DeAndre Hunter and another floor spacer for Russell Westbrook. But I feel like since the Sacramento Kings are starting to really rebuild, I think DeAndre Hunter might be gone as well. I don't know if they're going to trade him again, because remember, there was a trade a few years ago involving Wesley Matthews. Wesley Matthews went from Dallas to New York, and then New York traded him to the Indiana Pacers. So Wesley Matthews was on 3 teams that year. So possibly it could be like that with DeAndre Hunter again, but I don't know if I should really count on it. And here's the thing too, bro. DeAndre Hunter was a pretty popular name in Laker trade rumors. Apparently, there was a discussed deal involving Rui Hachimura and Dalton Knecht. And personally, I would have loved DeAndre Hunter on the Lakers, because Hunt really complements guys like Luka and AR, and I think he would be a really good start to the Luka AR era. Because again, like I said in my trade video, when I talked about Ben Mathurin going to the Lakers for Jake LaRavia and Gabe Vincent, I said that would be a really good start to, or a really good transition from the LeBron era to the Luka era. But again, I think I said in that video, I don't know if I said it, or I don't know if I said it in that video, but if I did, I'm going to say it here. I didn't mind having DeAndre Hunter on my team because he is a really good defender and a really good shot creator, and he's a good shooter as well. He provides the things that the Lakers do need, especially when you need to cover two defensively deficient guys who are just offensive machines in Luka and AR. So potentially that deal still could be in play, but I don't know, man. I mean, that's kind of weird. I don't know why the Kings would pull this trade. I understand that Keon Ellis, you didn't want to let you didn't want to let bro walk for nothing, but I don't know, man. This was kind of a weird deal to me, but I think the Lakers did fumble on both Keon and Hunt in that sense. Overall, if you want me to evaluate that trade, it's a B for the Cleveland Cavaliers because they do get guard depth. Now the question is, how are they going to shake up their rotations? Because they have so many point guards on that team now, and they don't really have a starting small forward unless you can count Dean Wade, or unless you count a guy like Max Strus, and he hasn't seen the court at all this year. But you do get a nice defender off your bench in Keon Ellis, and then Dennis Schroeder can help fill in that role for Darius Garland as the starting point guard as he's out with a toe injury. And then the Cavaliers are probably going to trade Lonzo at the trade deadline as well. So overall, a B for the Cavs. And if the Sacramento Kings, I'm going to grade it as like, I'm going to be nice and give them a C minus because I kind of get what they're going for. But at the same time, this is the Sacramento Kings that don't really have a direction right now. And I think their only plausible option is to rebuild, meaning to get off the contracts of Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Russell Westbrook as well. They might trade DeAndre Hunter again. Who knows? But let's talk about this recent piece of interesting news that also came up a few hours ago prior to this trade. Paul George has been suspended for 25 games for violating the league's anti-drug policy. I'm going to read y'all an article from NBC Sports Philadelphia that kind of details what the hell happened in this suspension. So, 4 days after his best game as a 76er, 9-time All-Star Paul George has been suspended without pay by the NBA for 25 games for violating the league's anti-drug program, the league announced Saturday morning. The suspension starts Saturday night, or in other words, tonight, or last night, depending on when y'all are watching this, when the 76ers face the Pelicans at Wells Fargo Center. And yes, I'm still calling it Wells Fargo Center, even though it's called Xfinity Mobile Arena right now. Argue with your mama. According to Spot Track, the suspension will cost PG $11 million or $460K per game, nearly $500,000 for every game he will miss. On Tuesday, PG made 9 3-pointers and scored 32 points with 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in a 139-122 win over the Bucks. He became the third oldest player in NBA history with 9 threes in a game, only behind Steph Curry and James Harden. In 27 games this year, Podcast P is averaging 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists per game. He is the oldest player in 76ers history to at least average 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. PG told ESPN's Shams that he was suspended for using a banned substance to address mental health issues. Over the years, I have discussed the importance of mental health, and in the course of recently seeking treatment for an issue of my own, I made the mistake of taking an improper medication. Bro, what? Anyways, I take full responsibility for my actions, and I apologize to the 76ers organization, my teammates, and the Philly fans for my poor decision making during this process. I am focused on using this time to make sure that my mind and body are in the best condition to help the team when I return. Podcast P is eligible to return on March 25th when Philly face the Bulls in South Philadelphia. They will only have 10 regular season games remaining when he returns, and Philly is currently number 6 in the East, and I believe they are still there. If I'm not mistaken, they are 27-21 on the year. So I just watched Inside the NBA's take on the whole Paul George suspension thing, and I think Charles Barkley was the only one that was right on the money. I think Shaquille O'Neal or Shaq said something about like there is a booklet that the NBA gives you about the type of drugs you take and how long it takes until said drug clears your system. And Charles Barkley actually pointed out that, yo, there's something deeper, or to quote him, there's something fishy going on here. Because if you are doing something with mental health and you're taking like prescription drugs prescription drugs for mental health, that has to be some sort of outlier. Now, and I don't want to get too off the rails. I have been someone that has dealt with mental health issues dating back to my middle school years, and then leading up to high school, and then a few years ago as I was starting college. But the thing about it is, obviously, everybody deals with mental health differently, and I for sure as hell dealt with my mental health issues differently. I'm not going to disclose it here, and I personally do not want to talk about that stuff because it's so personal to me. But I just kind of hate how it's starting to be used as a bit of a cop out, right? Because mental health, it ain't nothing to joke about. And I'm sure as hell PG has been, going through mental health issues. I mean, he was on Serge Ibaka's "How Hungry Are You," where him and Serge talked about being in the bubble and how it was mentally messing up Paul George because of the fact he had to stay in a hotel by himself. There were nights where he felt sleepless. There were nights where it's just like he was afraid probably one of his family members got COVID or something to that liking, bruh. But I don't know, man. I agree with Chuck on this one. There's something deeper going on here. And some of the comments are actually suggesting that there are a multitude of drugs. A more common drug that people think that PG is taking would be something like PEDs. I was talking about it with my mom and dad earlier before I made this video. Is that there's a possibility that PG was taking some sort of performance enhancing drugs, which I ain't gonna jump to conclusions, y'all, but if you really think about it, I mean, shoot, the fact that he scored 32 points the other night, even though we haven't seen, and with 9 threes on top of that, the fact that we haven't seen that type of performance from Paul George in quite a while, like, everybody knew that something was going on, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, bro. There is something deeper going on there because it cannot just be the fact that, oh, I was just taking improper medication. Because I guarantee y'all, PG knew what the hell he was taking, bro. PG knew what the actual hell he was taking. He's just using that to save face because why in the actual hell would you take a drug that is quote unquote improper to what it's supposed to help you with? You know what I mean? And even if that were true, bro, it either tells me, A, Paul George, you are dumber than we thought, or number two, the doctor is really freaking stupid and he should be sued and he should be fired and he should never look for another job in medicine again after that. Because look at it this way. Look at the Michael Jackson case. Conrad Murray, who was Michael Jackson's doctor, was sentenced to 4 years in imprisonment for involuntary manslaughter after he treated the King of Pop with propofol. So it's just like, Podcast P, do you not know what the hell type of drugs you are taking? So at this point, PG has to have taken some type of PEDs because there is no way this could be improper mental health medication. And you also want to know something? I'm going to say this before I let y'all go. A few months ago during the 2024-25 season, obviously the 76ers were struggling and then Joel Embiid had to be ruled out for the rest of the year when Paul George made this quote, essentially. When asked about Joel Embiid's injury struggles, his words of wisdom were drugs help. I think he said this on his podcast. I think. But it's just like, bruh, I think he kind of walked himself right into that one and he set himself up to be suspended. And honestly, if y'all look at that quote, and that quote was from February of 2025. So literally last February. So it's just like PG kind of did some unsubtle foreshadowing to what the hell was going to happen now. I'm like, this dude is an actual tool, bro. And I haven't been a big Paul George defender ever since his last season with the Clippers. And to be honest, his first season in Philadelphia, which was last year. But it's just like, man, bro. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know. What do y'all think about this situation with Paul George and the 25-game suspension because of potential use of PEDs? And what do y'all think about the Cavs-Kings trade involving DeAndre Hunter, Dennis Schroeder, and Keon Ellis? Do y'all love it? Do you hate it? Do you feel like this helps Cleveland a lot with their defense and their guard depth? Do you guys think this will help Cleveland get into a deep playoff run? Let me know your thoughts below, or whatever thoughts y'all have. Just let me know in the comments below. I just wanted to get on here and give and waste 15 minutes of y'all time just to hear me rant about basketball, man. But yeah, more news coming soon, I guess, and more videos coming soon. Trade deadline this Thursday. I will do what I did last year and talk about, my thoughts on whatever trades happen on that Thursday or before the Thursday deadline. You get the story. But yeah, until then, that's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.